Welcome, Vic. Thank you for being a guest on my podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here and have a wonderful conversation with you.
Yeah, we already had quite a cool conversation before this, but now we need to involve my audience. Tell my audience where in the world are you located, and then tell them one thing about you that they wouldn't find on your website or wouldn't know just from seeing you.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'm originally from Chicago. I just moved to Knoxville, Tennessee last year, actually December. And one thing that you wouldn't find, I don't talk too much about or share a lot about. I'll share two things because they're both my art expression. I love cooking. That's one of the things.
Mhm.
Well, no, let's keep it to the cooking side. Been cooking since I was 6 years old, but recently I always had a passion. I don't like baking much, but I got into the baking world of breads and sourdough specifically, and just how to make healthier breads. And I did this a couple years ago, and then life got in the way, and I kind of got away from it. And now I'm back in full gear where I'm baking like 3 to 4 times a week, and it's just awesome to what I can do because I know how what I'm making is healthier
Yeah.
from my health background, and it's old school making of bread, and so it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I would think also because you make it by yourself, and we're talking about energy later, you're putting your energy into it, and the more positive and loving energy you put into your food, the healthier it is because for us on the energy level too. So and when you're buying it in the store, we actually don't know what the person who was at the machine, because everything gets done by machine most likely, was thinking or what energy they're putting in. So I love it.
I love how you bring that up because it's so true. Like you can have it's some people will say like when my mom cooks, my mom's a phenomenal cook. And I come from a line of really good cooks. My grandmother was a great cook, my great grandmother was a great cook. And some people be like, whatever they do, what's the recipes they follow? I'm like, they don't follow recipes. And I'm like, it's just love. Like when you
Yeah.
see them do their work and their craft, you can tell they're just something different in what they're doing. Same thing for me. I don't, people say, well, man, this is great. What did you put? What was the recipe? I don't know the recipe. What do you mean, I don't know the recipe? I just seen this made so many times. I just know how the process goes. I know what to look for. I know what I have. And, but it's that love factor because it does raise the vibration of the food, which also means you digest it better and also gives
Yeah.
you more life force too. They've done studies on this where you can test it out. You can test it out yourself from just like doing a muscle test or something along those lines. That's why like prayer before eating is so great to do, because and if you don't, it's not a religious prayer. You can just be grateful for the food,
Yeah.
right? Have a state of gratitude that raises the vibration of the food, and then you
Yeah.
enjoy more and you get more health benefits from it.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't expect to get into the discussion or the conversation like this, but I love it because I read the sample of your book, your latest book, and you talked in there about the water, and I forgot now Kamutu or whatever the guy's name was. No, what was the name? You probably remember. I don't.
Dr. Masuru Imoto.
Yeah, Emoto, exactly. Almost just made a jumble out of his name, and he talked about the water, it's a really easy thing we can do ourselves too. Like you said, pray before you eat or be grateful before you eat, but you could also bless your water. And you just think love, even if it comes out of the tap, you can bless your water, and it will be so much better for your body. So I love so much that we're talking about topics like this. But let's let's start where I wanted to start. How did you get into it? What was your journey? Did you grow up knowing all this? Or did you have to learn the hard way like me?
Mix of both. I mean, it was one of those things where I always felt like an outsider. Always felt like I never fit in. And there was a point in my life where I was up to 12 years old. I was very in tune. I knew things that I shouldn't have known. I don't know how I knew them. It's not like I can say, "Oh yeah, I knew that," and I was gifted at a young child. I don't. I could. How can I say that when I didn't know why I knew these things? Like my mom would always like, "You're way ahead of your time," and people I talk to like, "You're 12-year-old, yeah, no, you talk way older than a 12-year-old." But then there came a point. That's why I'm bringing up 12 is when I started to realize I didn't fit in, so I wanted to fit in. That was more important to me, and so I let go of my intuition and all that stuff. And it took 12 years. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still followed. I had this gut feeling I was just used to having, and there was always this inner voice, but I didn't. Sometimes I trusted it, sometimes I just didn't. And it came to a point where I was about 24 and I was in chiropractic school. I started to actually really uh, go back to those roots and start to connect, because I was going into energy healing. I mean, I was going in chiropractic school, but then at the same token, outside of school, I was learning energy healing, energy techniques on how to heal. I wanted to learn the deepest element of it. I became a Reiki master and trainer, and this is where I started to learn. This is now I'm like, how do I trust myself? And I used to get so much in my head because I built a mind for survival. Right. So my mind, I'm, knowing things, how fast I can learn, how fast I can adapt. That was all survival mechanisms growing up. And I had to learn to let go of that to tap into this thing called intuition and guidance and all this other stuff. And that was hard. That wasn't easy for me. Like, I'd be
Mm.
so second guessing myself. I didn't realize how much self-worth issues I had, how much lack of confidence I had in myself, lack of belief. So I don't know if that's the hard school of knocks that I was going through, learning how to relearn what I already knew. Uh, but that was my journey getting into this kind of realm of energy and so forth, to start to embrace it. And then as I dove deeper into it, I started to realize how, wow, I don't really need to have such a strong mind as much anymore. Really, I just need to learn to let go and just, trust the process and just know where my intention is. And as long as I have that, everything else is going to align the way it needs to. But it took me a while to accept it. It wasn't like I was 24, I had it and I figured that and I said, okay, I'm gonna let everything go. It was probably in my early 30s when I started to, what I'm sharing now is how I took that on.
Yeah, I think it has also to do with the society, no? Because it's not like um, what you're talking about is the truth, but that's not how society lives. That's not what the feedback we're getting at all. And I think that is when it gets hard. And you said that it wasn't, you realized the mind wasn't so important. Well, the whole society puts everything on the mind, no? And the mind, but actually the mind is the one who trips us up all the time, no? Who keeps us from having the intuition, from keeps us from actually finding the truth, let's say like this, because it's constantly chattering some BS in our head, no? So,
It is. I mean, here's the thing. Think about it this way. We know this. We've been shown it in front of our face
yeah,
growing up. We've all seen this, but
yeah.
we don't know what this really. We didn't realize this is what it is, because we've never been told this. So you've always seen a cartoon or something where you have the angel on one shoulder. I think it's the left side, and then you have the devil, the dark thing on the right side. Who's
Hmm.
feeding whose mind? Right? We've all seen
Yeah,
that. Even in the Bible, it talks about how the devil and how it works itself and so forth. I'm not
yeah.
saying your mind's the devil, so please do not take it that way when I explain this. But your heart is where the essence of who we are is. That's where love is. That's where light is, and all these. We know from even from so people are hearing me say this, they're like, okay, this guy's getting a little out there. Well, there's scientific proof now. We know that there is a field around us. There's
Yes.
an aura field that we have, which is called a biophotonic field, known in science. But we also know now we also have a torus field around this. It expands, it comes through both sides, channels through the heart, and it's like a big donut that it's a vortex that spins around us. We all have it. We know this scientifically. With that all being said, that's where, so when we get in our heads, that's when we can be easily persuaded. That's our old past. That's our inner critic. That's all this old things that have been conditioned for eons, not just in your life, but also
Yeah.
generationally, what has been
Yes.
passed down,
Yes.
meant either consciously or genetically, because we know genetics, they also pass down experiences. And so that's the mind is what I always say, like the thing that's going to pull you away from your course and so forth. It's not going to guide you in certain ways. We feel like we have to do this. This is what we do. Where the heart is all about just trusting, letting go, and tapping into a field that it's hard to comprehend because language minimizes things. So when you tap into that energy of what I call the heart, um, you have to feel, because that's the language.
Mm.
You can't verbalize it. So when I teach a lot of my clients this stuff, it's way out there because we've been taught to get away from our bodies. We've been
Mm.
taught that our bodies. What has the medical community been saying? It's all genetics.
Yeah.
You got bad genetics. That's just it. You have a damaged body and you need medications to chemically correct
Yeah.
you. I'm not
Yeah.
bashing medicine, guys. I grew up in the field of health. I know the systems on both ends. I've studied both of them very, very extensively. And so it's one of those things where, but that's not really true. Like we can change things even from a DNA. We rewrite our DNA often, or our genetics, our genes. And so it's one of those things where, um, the mind will always be that trickster, and it's easy to allow things to trick you in some way, but the mind knows how to play the game and knows how to control you because it knows
Yeah.
your weaknesses and it
Yeah.
evolves with you. So a lot of
Hmm.
times people think, well, I solved that, I healed from that, I'm good. Oh yeah, there's deeper levels to
Yeah.
that because
Yeah.
it's going to show up
Yeah.
later in life. Like when I've been on this journey for 16, 17 years, probably longer, about 19 years now. And it's one of those things where it always fascinates me when something comes back and I'm like, I healed from that. Why is this showing up again? And then I just quiet my mind and I'm like, huh, that's what you're doing to me. Okay, you're just pulling new strings.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, now I'm becoming more aware of something else that the mind's trying to initiate a fear or whatever it may be, and it's not a bad thing. It's not doing it on purpose. It's just for survival. It's just for comfort. That's what the brain's designed to do for you, and it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't have that.
Yeah.
But leading with that is the problem, and that's what we
Yeah.
see a lot of right now.
Yeah. So many points where I could say something. You were saying about how we can change the genes and the DNA. And what came to my mind is that crazy project, forgot now how it's called, where they even sell these kits now that you can do this yourself, changing DNAs and stuff like this. And it's on one end, it's really scary. And on the other end, it's like mind blowing when you look what you can do already. And you call this whole thing that the mind does, if I understood your book right, you call this kind of like the matrix, and we sit in the matrix, no? And your book is called Decoding the Matrix. So you touched on it already a little bit, but so the purpose of this and of the mind is survival, in your opinion? Is that why we're having this, and why society and and the world, let's call it for that, as neutral as possible, is doing or is living this way rather than from the heart? Or what is your theory?
Yeah. So what it is that when we're first born, we brought into this world, we're in survival, right? We're learning about the world. We're trying to adapt. We're trying to do whatever it can. So what's the systems, how the game's played? Where's humanity at? We're learning from our parents. We're learning from our community. We're learning how to adapt. And more importantly, well, not more importantly, but what's happening is we're trying to fit in.
Mm,
Because that's how we are as social creatures. We want to fit in, and at a young age, that's important for you. And so, what happens is, for most people, is what they don't realize is they keep that conditioning of survival throughout their whole life.
mhm,
They think that that's how the world is. This is how my mind is. This is what I need to do for the rest of my life, and they don't realize that you've been conditioned in some way, shape, or form. You have programming in you, just everyone does. I do,
mhm.
and I do
Yeah.
this work also. And I always tell people, I still have subconscious programming in me. There's
Oh
things
yeah.
I'm always gonna have to work on stuff. But what the matrix does is the matrix is the average of all consciousness levels of all the humans that exist in the world. And that creates a whole experience for it's like a game. This is the vibration of where humanity is. All right, this is the experiences that are going to come from that. And then there's submatrices, which are countries, continents, states, cities, towns. It comes all the way down to the individual, yourself, and others. And it's one of those things where wherever the matrix is, this now we're looking at generations before us that's been conditioned in some way. They pass that down unconsciously. We always pass down things that we haven't consciously healed or we
Mhm.
haven't consciously worked through. You're going to pass it down unconsciously. And so this is how we as individuals get conditioned. And then if we don't do this work, we live in that realm too, because 95% of our life is dictated by our subconscious mind. We're running on autopilot. That's what most
Yeah.
people are living their lives. And it's one of those things where when you start to understand this, this is how we can start to, when we're decoding the matrix, then you can start to shift away and then you realize what is it that we can do to truly live our full life, to live our full potential, really live what matters really, truly to me rather than what the world has conditioned me to believe or what things are. Because just like being a business coach, you listen to the best business advice and it's always doing. It's always something outside. Here's the
Yeah.
list you need to do. Here's the 7 things you should be doing. Here's the 7 things or
Yeah.
5 things you should follow.
Yeah.
And that's great. I'm not saying the advice is not bad, not great. I never want to take away from that because it is good stuff.
We knew that we need the doing.
We need doing in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
But the problem is what people don't realize is there's a law called the law of inspired action. And the work I teach, and what kind of what we were talking about earlier when we first started, is energy. And we've been doing things so backwards now in life. I mean, we are doing things vastly backwards. And so what happens is though the mind likes conditions and patterns. So I can tell you, yeah, success is this way and this is how it should be. No, look at this billionaire. Look what they do and look how they did. And these people follow them. Look, they got the same results. I'm like, not everyone did. I'm like, no, but look, they got results for people. So it works. Right. That's the mind needing proof.
Mm-hmm,
And I'm
mm-hmm.
always like, that's great. But here's the thing. How many of those are burnouts? How many people
Yeah.
aren't fulfilled? I mean, you hear this story all the time. People who've made all this money and then they're like, yeah, I
Yeah.
was unfulfilled once I got there. I thought I would be and I wasn't. I
Yeah.
was like that. I thought when I hit my financial peak, I thought I was going to be fulfilled and everything was going to be great in my life. It was the total opposite. I'm not saying my whole life was in disarray, but nothing was at where I wanted it to be or could have
Mm-hmm.
been the potential
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And you have to make those changes and those shifts in life in order to excel, to see things at a different level. And that's what I learned. I was like, I was conditioned. Dang it. Here we go. Learn something new here.
Mm-hmm.
And had to find really what mattered most to me and then being able to know it's okay for me to do that because we have limiting beliefs that hold us back too. Like for
Yeah.
me to change my practice, not only do that, but then change into being the workload that I wanted to take on rather than what I was being told I needed to do. Then I'm like, I don't know, are patients going to be okay with that? Are they going to accept that? Or is it? And I was like, you know what? Just got to go through this.
Yeah.
I need to be fulfilled. My fulfillment is what matters most at the end of the day, not from a selfish standpoint, because I love to give and love to help and love to serve. That's what fulfills me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, but I want to be able to really help people at the deepest level that I possibly can. And I knew I wasn't doing that. And I was like, I need to make a change. And so,
Yeah. I think one of the issues why it's so hard to actually listen to yourself what you want and then go out and do that is because we're raised to ask for permission. No, it's or we're, and even if this is not openly said that you need permission for everything, it's still how kind of the whole thing works. It's like, is this okay if I do this? It's like we're sometimes as women, especially too, it's like we're asking every single girlfriend, am I allowed to do this? You know, or then you become an employee in a business and you kind of have to ask before you want to do something that is not what comes as an order from above, let's say like that. And so, and then when you become self-employed and entrepreneur, like you just said, you're like, are the people are going to be okay with it? Well, the ones that are attracted to you will be okay with it. No, but we don't learn it this way. We learn it that we have to be a certain way in order for the world to be okay, but then we're not okay. And who is not interested in being okay themselves? No, but we still always make sure the client is okay, make sure the world is okay, make sure the stranger on the internet is okay with what I'm saying or doing. And I think that's why it's so hard. You talk in your book about that the most important thing to get out of the matrix is also to have a vision. So talk a little bit about a vision, because a lot is talked about visions, but I'm thinking like they're going also about the doing part about it and not what you're talking about the really like the being part of the vision.
yeah, the vision is I mean, I've studied a lot of religions, and it was interesting to see how vision came up in a lot of these things. A lot of the ancient wisdom that I studied in spiritual truth. When I say ancient wisdom, it's stuff that's been shared 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. And vision I would see pop up often in there. And it was one of those things when I take clients through this aspect, the first thing we work on is what's your main purpose and vision in life? Why do you exist? Right? You can call it your soul's purpose, but I call it your main vision of why you're here. And this is critical because this is this is not about doing, right? It's not, I'm here to do this. I'm here. No, it hasn't. Those are not like, for me, it's a purpose of anything that I do, anything that I'm doing. Um, it's just to raise conscious levels of individuals to remember the greatness of who they are. That's the reason why I'm here. That's the purpose why I'm here in this. And somebody say, well, how do you know that? Well, I don't know that. I'll be honest. I don't know it from a mental standpoint. I have no clue, to be honest, but I know it from a feeling. It feels
You know
good in
it
my
in your
heart.
heart. You don't need to know. And that's just what we talked about with the mind. The mind always interferes. You don't need to know it with the mind. You just know it with your heart. And I'm thinking eventually science will be able to measure that too, because that's just how scientific studies go. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, but
No, you're fine.
it's totally true. When people always say like, how do you know? Well, I know inside. This is not something I can justify or explain or prove with the brain. or
No,
we
we
can.
can't. And it's hard to put words to it, but we do know scientifically there's something called neuropeptides, and neuro means nerves or brain, and peptides is a type of protein. And we know that these, what they call them, like the emotional responses we get, these feelings we get. Because when I was first learning this stuff about, intuition and your vibe and how you feel with something, everyone's like, that's just woo woo stuff. Well, then remember I had a teacher who was like, that's called a physiological response. We pick
Hmm.
up on things without knowing we're picking up on things.
Yeah.
We have there's just things about the nervous system that we just don't understand yet, but there is a response, and there's knowing what that is. But this is what I try to teach a lot of my clients about getting. The biggest thing I try to teach my clients is getting out of their head and getting into their heart. And this is one of the things. Like I said, how do I know my main vision and sole purpose is that? I don't, but I know a feeling, right? I
Hmm.
just know the feeling's there, and I know what
Hmm.
that feeling means because
Hmm.
I've done this work and I've conditioned my mind, because you have to involve the mind. You can't just go by the heart all the whole time. The mind's not going to allow you to do that. The mind has to have something. So what you say, the way I tell my clients is like, hey, when you get this feeling, and mine comes between my chest, my heart, and my stomach, and there's just this feeling I get. It's usually like a joy, a bliss, like a little kid excitement, or sometimes it's a really deep, like grounding feeling. And it's like wisdom, like you're hearing wisdom from someone, and you're just like, wow, yeah, that's deep. You're not getting excited about the wisdom, you just know it's like a deep truth. And again, I'm trying to use words to try to
Hmm.
explain that feeling as best as I can. But when I get this feeling, I've trained my mind to say, hey, when this comes up, that's alignment to my soul's purpose. When this comes up, that means this is something good for me that my soul wants to experience. And so I've told my mind this, like that. I mean, I don't talk to my mind like that, but I just
Why not?
initiate, like, when I feel this, well, I do it in a way like, when I feel this, that means that. And that's the end of it. And so then when it comes up, eventually over time, I rewire my brain, which we're always rewiring our brain. And I just teach it, hey, this is what it's going to be. And then I just have to get used to it. And I start practicing with it. It's like a new tool, new trick that I'm learning. And then I keep doing it. And eventually it becomes automatic. Where then all of a sudden I'm not like, well, is that the feeling? Did it? Oh, that feels like it. No, it's just like, yep, this is where I'm going. Hey, why do you want to
Yeah.
do that? I have no clue. And they'll be like, and sometimes I mean, I've done this so long. This is not something I just learned yesterday, or this has taken years of different things in my life to really get good at this. Where it's like, even with adjusting, hey doc, why'd you do that? I have no clue. What do you mean you have no clue? I have no idea why I made that specific adjustment today. It just felt like I needed to do it. Let me know how things go. And then they're like, yeah, I felt great when I came up and I noticed this, I feel like this blood flow's going better. I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, I again, don't know. Can't answer it. And then they want answers. I'm like, I wish I can give you anything. I can give you some
Yeah.
neurological stuff. I can tell you physiologically what's going on, but I don't know if that's the real reason. And I don't want to just make myself sound like I'm smart. I just don't do those things.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll just leave it at that and let's just go that route. But it's the same thing with my clients. I love when they get to a point and they're just like, I feel like I need to do this. And I'd be like,
Hmm.
tell me why you feel that way. And I just want to know the feeling. I want to really get into it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I like it. Let's do it. If you feel that way, you sure this sounds crazy? Crazy. Who to who? Does it sound crazy to you? Then that's probably a good thing because it's outside your comfort. And they're
Hmm.
like, huh? I'm like, yeah, because crazy is outside your comfort. And they're like, yeah, but and I'm like, nope, because I go, well, how do you define crazy? The crazy, or this is weird, or whatever you want to call it. I'm like, that's based on a rule book. And where's that rule book coming from that determines what's crazy and what isn't?
Yeah.
Your rule book. Where's the rule book coming from yours? Subconsciously. Where?
Yeah.
Your upbringing, humanity, the matrix, so forth. Just like in business, you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to continue to do. And we've been conditioned, and it's not just in business, though, it's in humanity.
Yeah.
You brought up a great point. I just want to touch base on this really quick. You brought up something so powerful, is when you look at, like, when we're looking at, hey, did I do a good job? Right? And we're always looking outside for satisfaction. This is actually conditioned as a kid.
Hmm.
And I have almost a 4-month-old daughter. And my wife we were having these conversations when she was first born. And I told her, I'm like, I don't want to tell her she did a good job. I don't want to tell her, this and that. And she's like, no, I agree with you. And then but then she did some research and she shared something with me last week. And she's like, did you know that it does this, this, and this, and this? And it makes them seek outside themselves instead of trusting themselves. And I look and I go, that's exactly why I won't do that. Instead, I will use terms like, well, tell me a little more about that. Or if they get really excited about something, tell me why, what did it excite you the most when you did
Hmm.
this?
Hmm.
Right. I don't want to tell them, hey, great job. I just want to, or if let's say they play a sport and they kick the winning goal, whatever that is. I don't want to be like, hey, great job. You did absolutely amazing. No, tell me what made you feel that way. What made you trust you to do that? Because what I'm
Hmm.
teaching them then is how to trust themselves
Yeah.
and not listen to someone else. The whole system is rigged for us to look outside ourselves. It
Mm-hmm.
started in 1930 with the education system, right?
Yeah.
You look at it, you had it. Why do we have teachers? You got to make your teacher proud. You got to get an A on your test. You have to. I can go all day on a podcast on that, but that's a
Okay,
story.
you and
So
I
yeah,
probably we would go on a tangent because when you start with the school system, then I'm just like, yeah, why did they start the school system? I did some research. You look a little bit into history. It's so much easier to make sure you get good factory workers or good employees when you teach them in school already to just follow rules and orders. That's why I was saying. So we're so conditioned. And the other thing I wanted to say is when you said that your clients sometimes feel like, oh, this is a crazy idea, and oh my God, and don't I look like a fool or crazy if I do this? When we look again into history, any great inventor or any great businessman or businesswoman, any person who did something great was in their time called crazy. And we have now great humans on earth who do so-called crazy things, and those will be the ones who are in the history books for future generations to be talked about. And yeah, so I think the minute we start thinking that, that's at least my understanding right now, or what I'm doing, the minute I start thinking, oh, this is a little crazy or this is a little out there, that is the sign actually that, okay, I'm on the right track. Because like you said, we're all in this matrix, and it's really hard to get out of the matrix because we're so conditioned. So when we get this crazy and oh, and maybe the mind starts screaming no no then we may have to go that way. At least that's kind of what I feel.
no, and you do. I mean, it's one of those, and you got to have that feeling, right? Because like I had a very successful practice, and I made a choice. My wife and I did to move away out of state because we had a feeling that we needed to make a change. Now, my
Mm-hmm.
mind was trying to give me those reasons first because it was like, oh no, this is why. A few years back, I was like, oh, this is why you don't like it here. This is why you want to make a change. But there was this inner burning sensation I just couldn't let go. Like I knew we needed to make this change. And then when my wife came on board, we did this. It's crazy. A lot of people thought we were crazy because we had a successful practice. We had a huge impact in the community. Everything goes well in our life, especially especially from a financial standpoint. And
Mm.
then all of a sudden we make a huge shift where we take a huge hit financially to go in a different route, something that I felt I needed to do anyhow because I didn't feel like again, these are all these feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like I needed to make this next change. And you go down that route, and all of a sudden, people look, oh, this is crazy, this stuff. But for us, we were just like, we don't have words on why for a lot of this, but we know it's all going to work out, and that's all we know
Mm-hmm.
because we've been there before. We've
Yeah.
done this many times.
Yeah, you said many times about we don't have the words for it, we don't have the language for it. This reminds me of the book that Brene Brown just wrote um, about language, and she always says like our language is so poor, we can't even express our feelings. Most people have three words for feelings, kind of like excited, happy, and upset, or angry, or mad. Like maybe it's five, but I mean those are basically two groups of feelings. No, and she wrote a whole book about what the different feelings are, and she says if we have better language for our feelings, which is not taught in school, which is not taught anywhere, then we can explain a little bit better what's going on inside of us. But again, the matrix is not interested in feelings, they're more interested in logic. And but I do feel like it's shifting now. So this is uh to me this is exciting because then we start fitting in more. No, like, because I'm like you, I'm from little already. I felt there was more, and I felt that there is something wrong with this. I didn't call it matrix or whatever. I just kind of like, and I never fit in. And then I had, like you, the phase where I tried to fit in, and then you're trying to work your way out. And so I wanna ask something else. So you're helping business owners mostly, as far as I understand, using um, their heart and their energy and their inner knowing more. But you also talk about something in the book about the feedback system. And I would like to know more about the feedback system because, as you said, we can't we can't ignore the mind. And so to me, it feels like the feedback system helps us a little bit to quiet the mind if we then see results, so called. No.
Yeah, there's two systems that I talk about. Can't remember which one I think I talked. No, I talked about one of them for sure. But there's one feedback system where is wherever your energy's been at, wherever you've been focusing the most, the universe will always give you a feedback of where you are, where you're putting your energy to, where you're focusing the most on. So if you have things showing up in your life and you're not happy with what they are, and it's like this is not what I want to experience, there's a signal issue that you're sending out that's not correct. Then it's not, you're not keeping the focus center to where you want it to be. The second though is also a feeling that we've been talking about so far, and that feedback system is knowing when you're in alignment. This is why I'm so big on feelings, because when you know when I say alignment, alignment means looking at your vision, what you want to create for yourself, and then having focus into that, and then your actions are aligned to all that. So there's not like, hey, I want to be a 7-figure business, let's say, but yet you're freaking out about the next bill that just came in. Those are two different people,
Mm,
and so it's that those crazy incongruences. But this feeling that you get, and again, you have to develop what is that means for you, because everyone's different. This is why a lot of my coaching, I always tell people, they're like, well, what kind of system do you follow? What kind of this? I'm like, I don't have really a system, because it's individual. Like
mm-hmm,
I have ideologies of what I can use. I can share all the tools that I tell you that I work with, but
mm-hmm,
at the end of the day, it's what you need and what's
mm-hmm,
going to show up when we're in discussion, when we're in conversation. Those are the things that are going to come up, and you'll see when you trust that process, you're going to be like, holy cow, I didn't realize that that conversation went there and that meant this, and then we went to, and I'm like, this is the kind of work we do. But
mm-hmm,
it's the feedback to where when you can understand that, this is why when you have low vibes, like you're not feeling great, you're feeling depressed, or you're just not happy with things, or you're frustrated, that's a sign of being out of alignment. That's all it is. Because
mm-hmm,
alignment to your soul, and again, going back to feelings, because it's all planted for many different reasons within us, that when we have this feeling of like bliss, joy, happy, I always say there's 4 emotions. You can maybe say 5, but it's bliss, joy, like a calmness. And I say calm, but like it's grounding, calm.
mm-hmm,
Again, it's just the feeling. I wish I can just like, this is why language limits so much, because I wish I can just like send the energy out of that feeling. You go, that's what I'm talking about right there. You know that feeling? Oh yeah, I feel that feeling. Yep, that's what I'm talking about. But then peace. When you have those things, you're in alignment. This is also being in the present moment in some
mm-hmm,
ways. But the alignment side is because now you're aligned to what you chose to experience in this human life. I may be
mm-hmm.
getting a little out there on the spiritual side, but it's one of those things. This was built into us so that we can lead that fulfilled life of what really matters for us.
Mm. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about, because you also have a podcast with over 400 episodes, by the way, which I'm jealous. I'm only at 147. So
That's good.
I'm still a
147.
baby.
You're
Over
four.
four.
You know you're 14 times higher than what the average podcast is.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
give yourself credit for that one.
I do. I do. And it's not always easy, but so heads off for you with over 400. But so that's the feedback system that I was talking about, which I thought was really, I think it is in your last episode, 400, forget, 27 or whatever, where you talk about vibration. And this is what I wanted to touch on, because so many, right now you hear everywhere, oh, manifesting, and let's manifest, and let's manifest. And what they're forgetting is that that's almost like the end of the thing when it's manifests. I can't speak English, when it manifests. And you talk in there specifically about the law of vibration, the law of attraction, and then the law of manifestation. And that if you're sending out the wrong vibration, then you can, with your brain or with your mind, you can try to manifest whatever you want. But if your vibration is wrong, then you attract the wrong, well, and wrong in like, it's not the wrong one, because it's the right one, because that's what you're attracting, because that's what you're sending out, you're getting back what you're sending out. And so this is where, that's the feedback loop that I was, or feedback system that I was referring to. Yeah, brag a little bit about your podcast. Why did you start it? Like, was it to get the word out, or was it purely like 400 episodes ago? That is probably 5-6 years, something like that.
A little over. It's 4.5 years right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was for selfish reasons. Well, not really selfish, because I had a podcast in 2012 about health, and it was called Wellness Smart Radio. I had like 100 episodes, and then I was like, I don't want to be another person sharing health stuff, even though I have a unique perspective. I'm like, that just didn't vibe. See, again, feeling, right? Just didn't feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
something I want to give my energy to. And I was like, I'm doing this in my practice, so I'd rather just put it there. And then 2017, end of 2017 comes, and I'm like, man, I did all this stuff. I'm going against the grain here. I want to have a podcast on spirituality or mindset, something along those lines. And then 2018 in April, end of March, I was like, that's it. I'm going to create something called the Mindful Experiment. It's just, you could take mindful out and just put life, because really it's just sharing about the life experiments that we go through, how life is all an experiment. Nobody really has everything figured out. And I always tell people, if they do, run away from them. And I say this very strongly because I thought I had things figured out in my late
Yeah.
20s. And even in my early 30s, I was like, I figured out this game called life. I got the rules down. I got this all situated. But I always remember some of my mentors will always say, like, the older you get, the less you actually really realize how much you don't know. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know about that. I'm 39 now, and I sit there and I'm like, man, they were dead on. Because it's like, the more, like, I always say I just know a little bit of all that, but I digress with all that. Now I lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me. But yeah,
Why you started the podcast?
yes. So why we started the podcast is then coming back to just getting, I wanted to share that message. And then the other thing too is selfish reasons. I wanted to learn from people and connect with people and meet people I wouldn't meet normally in the physical world. And I can connect on the internet side of things and learn from them, pick their brain and so forth. And so at the same token, I'm learning something. My guest is getting exposure being on my podcast with my audience, and then the audience learns and benefits from it, which is a win-win-win aspect. And that's really what it has come to. And it's been, as you know, it's a labor of love, and it's been absolutely a joy to do. And like I said, I just released today 419, my 419 episode, and it's just been great to do this process. And the people I've met along the journey, some of them have become friends, and just and other things have evolved from that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
this is what it's about. It's just creating a community and sharing with people the help in any way, shape, or form that I could.
Yeah, yeah, I have very similar reasons. So it's so funny how we always have to defend ourselves, oh, for selfish reasons. But this is so, like, one of the things I say, for example, in my business when I help people declutter, and I'm not talking about the regular decluttering like most people talk about, but also more like energetic, mentally, socially, and all these limiting beliefs and everything. But I always say too, it's like decluttering is self-love, and with decluttering I mean like a lot. And self-love and being selfish, that's also matrix. Oh no, you can't do that, you can't do that. But if we're not okay, and if we're hating our life, I don't think we're putting out the right vibration. Or not, I don't think, I mean, I know we're not putting out the right vibration, and so we can't reach where we want to reach. And we can talk about manifestation all day long. It's not gonna happen. So, and I totally get it. And so when we do our podcast, to me it helps me also get the mind on board, because then I'm sorting my thoughts, so and I'm sorting my feelings, then I'm talking, so then I have a benefit, and then I share it with the world, and then whoever listens to it has a benefit. So it's not selfish. That's kind of where I want to get to it. It's not selfish. It may sound selfish, but it is not. And our society has such a problem with the word selfish. So let's bring it down to a little bit of practical things. So another saying I have is, a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. So what could people do? Something really tiny that they can, because you say we can all create our dream life effortlessly. So now this is a bold claim for most people. They would say like, okay, Vic, where do I start?
Yeah, I love this. So one of the first things, and it's the most simplest things to do, and here's the thing, just to give a little bit of some social proof to why this works. Billionaires already do this. All right, most billionaires do this almost every single day. At least the ones I've studied, they do this. So tapping into your imagination, tapping into what is imagination, right? Creativity is another term for that. What's creativity? Well, what do you want to create for your future self? What do you want to see yourself in a year from now, or 3 years, or 5 years? The beautiful thing about the mind, it's a time machine. It can literally go in the past, in the future, come to the present. It can dance around. The mind and the brain doesn't know what's real and not. So that's the interesting thing about the brain, because what you put in your mind's eye, what you see in your head or your imagination, the brain doesn't know if that's real or not. So it just takes it as real. How cool is that? So imagination is really great. What do you want to see into the future? What do you want to experience in your relationships, your health? You can choose anything. This stuff all works. It's universal, but just choose something and just create an image for yourself. What is that? So let's say I'm going to use money because a lot of people talk about money. So what is, if you have a business, let's just say money in general, you want to be a millionaire. Okay. What does that future self look like? Let's say 3 years down the road, you're a millionaire. What are you thinking? How are you being? How do you walk throughout the day? What's your energy like? What does that person look like? How are you creating that individual of you in the future? And this is really big because the brain's not going to know the difference if that's true or not. And the more you do this work, you can trick the brain and use these principles to then the brain starts looking for that. You start to rewire it in that way. But you got to get a feeling with it, right? It's not just thinking. You have to get a feeling involved, get excited about it, right? Look at it and go, man, this is really exciting. I'm going to keep it simple. There's advanced work that that actually goes against what I'm about to say, but the simple work, this works for teaching purposes. So it's get excited about that person, you being that person and so forth. But the trick is knowing that there's no gap there. That's really you now. You can choose to be that now, right? And then start living that way every single day. Yeah. This is one of the simplest things to do because now you're starting to be that person of the future. You're not acting based upon your past circumstances, which most people do in the present moment. Most people think, oh, this day is just another day like any other day. But the truth be told, it's not. It could be the most biggest breakthrough day in the world if you let go of the baggage that you're carrying in every single day, not knowing. And so this future stuff is really great because you can hone in and how do I be that person today?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, this stuff works. I used this when I was in high school. I didn't know I was using this in high school because I wanted to be this calm, collective, cool guy. And so I had this image in my head of what it looked like. And once in a while I would see it and I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I see in my head. And just being very chill and relaxed and just calm and collective. And over time, well, it didn't happen automatically, but over time, girls would be like, you're very just like calm and chill. You're an Italian and you're not like a hothead. I'm like, I don't get mad. I get mad, but you're not going to see me get mad punching a wall or something. I've never done that. Why hurt my hand? Or I used to joke, it's not the wall's fault that I'm mad. But long story short, but then I started to apply this in other areas of my life. And now I'd use it all the time. Like, well, who's my future self? When I went full time in the coaching, I literally said, okay, who's that coach 3 years down the road or a year from now? How do I want to be coaching? How am I going to show up in my day every day? How am I going to show up in my relationships? How am I going to show up to see everything be in abundance? And I'm going to act like from there. I'm going to act like my bank account has millions of, I always tell people who are like worried, I don't have a lot of money, I'm trying to save, or I barely have enough for savings. You need to act like you have millions of dollars in your bank account right now. I'm not saying to spend like you have millions. That's I never said that. I said act with the confidence and the energy that it's there already. And then once you do that, you're going to start, you're going to trick the mind because the mind's going to start looking to align to that because you keep telling it, this is it. You tap the feeling into the body. Now, all of a sudden we're working on different levels to do that. So I'm kind of getting a little bit on the complexity of it, but the simplicity is to just create your future self.
And we could talk another 2 hours about why this is also scientifically proven and why this is true. And we can start with Einstein, who says there is no time, and we can say the future is now. Everything. I really love it, Vic. I could talk with you, like I said, for hours. Now, let's share with people where can they find you if they're intrigued now. What is your podcast name? You mentioned it already, but tell all the things. Social media, everything.
I appreciate that. Yes. So my hub is my website, empoweryourreality.com. If you're a business owner and you liked what I had to talk about or it resonated with you, I do a free discovery call. It's just really 20-something minutes to get to know you, your challenges, struggles, your dream life, what you want to get to. And then if I feel like this is the main reason why I do these things too, is because if I can know that I can help you, then I'll share what my coaching program is and talk about that there. I have a free ebook on the power of visualization where I share a couple studies in there that are pretty mind-blowing. My podcast you can find on there, The Mindful Experiment. And then social media, bottom left corner of the website. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. If you have any questions or anything, reach out. I love hearing from people.
Awesome. And I will put all the links in the show notes. So if somebody is on the road and hears this, you just come back to the show notes and you find all the links. Before we wrap up, Vic, any last words, tips, or is there anything I didn't ask or anything that you feel in your heart, in your gut that needs to be said before we say goodbye?
Have fun in everything that we talked about. go back to being a 3-4-year-old kid.
Oh, I love
That's
that.
that's the main essence of what I teach.
Yeah.
And if you can go back there, you've mastered this world, this life, and how to really manifest what you desire.
Oh, I love that answer. Good. Okay. Thanks so much, Vic, for your time and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.